So before we start, do you guys have a question so far or concern or any clarification? Hello?
Wala naman po.
Wala naman po, sir.
All right. Okay, so here's our module 1, part 3. So this is already the last part of module 1. Okay, so we have here a total of 39 slides. Okay, so we'll be finishing this one today. All right, so without a further delay, since you guys do not have a question anymore, so we will now start our part 3 module 1. Okay, so to begin with, we'll start with quantifiers. Okay, so what is this quantifiers? So logic using propositions are incapable of describing most of the statements. So take note, incapable most of the statements. And in mathematics and computer science, such as the use of variables. So that is why we're going to use quantifiers to complete such things. So as we all know, a propositional functions like p of x is not a proposition until it has a truth value. So what is this truth value? It is a final value or the deciding value of that variable. Because if it's just a variable, then we will never know whatever is the result of that statement. So it could be true depending on its value, or it could be false depending on its value. Okay. So up to this point, we could only do this by assigning a value to our variable. So for example, p of x. So if p of x represents x is greater than 0, then find the truth value for p of 4. So meaning, until we will not, or we would not put any value for x, then this will not become a propositional uh, result or a propositional statement. So this is just a propositional function. So in here, we will just put any value. Say the truth value for x is 4. So if you're going to put 4 on this statement, then we could say that this is already a propositional statement. Okay. So 4 is greater than 0. So this one is a true statement. Okay. So for us to be able to say that that one is a propositional statement, it should have a final value. Okay. So in considering those, okay, making a propositional function into a propositional statement, so we have two options, okay, or most probably the most famous, okay, option in turning such function into a proposition. So we have here universal and then an existential. So later on, we will discuss what is this universal and then existential. So for now, all you need to know is the symbol for universal is an inverted A, and then the symbol for existential is uh, parang na-flip but horizontally. Okay? Flip letter E. Okay? So first is universal quantifier. So universal quantifier is universally quantified statement wherein you could say that if all x in proposition x, so all x should be true for us to be able to say that this proposition is true. Okay, or you can read this one as for every x, or for all x, or for any x. Okay, so meaning all of our variable x, or all of our, what do you call this one, quantifier, or all, pinaka the best. Yun na nga lang, sige, variable na nga lang. So all of our variable, okay, should be, or all of variable x should be true for every possible results. So that is why we can say that for every x, for all x, and then for any x. Okay, x should be true for us to be able to say that this proposition is also true. Okay, so when will be the time that this universal x will become false? So take a look on this one. So Universal x, p of x is false if p of x is false for at least one x in its domain. Okay. So if you can find at least one x which is false in this statement or in this proposition, then the entire statement is already false. Okay. But if we will not be able to find, or if we cannot find any counterexample, so we call that one counterexample, then it is true for every x in its domain. Okay. Or it is true for any x in its domain, or it is true for all of x in its domain. Okay. So just be aware that we have three ways to read this universal. Okay. So we have every, any, and then all. Right. So again, all of our x should be true, and then if there is at least one x that is already false, then that is already false. Okay. And what is this domain? This domain is the set of the variables. Like for example, x is set of integers, or x is set of positive numbers, or x is set of whole numbers, or anything. So this domain could be anything depending on the definition of our variable x. So did you guys get this one so far? Or quite no?
Sir, medyo nalito.
Medyo nalito. Okay. So later on, I'll give you guys some example on how to differentiate universal and then existential. But for now, all you need to know is the symbol for universal is an inverted. Okay. And then this p of x is just our proposition. So nothing will change in our p of x. It's just that this one, universal quantifier or universal statement. Okay. So next one is existential. So this one is existentially quantified statement. So the symbol for existential is again this flip E, wherein E is existential quantifier and then P of X is proposition, which means that for some X, P of X is true. For at least one X, P of X is true. There exists X, P of X is true. So as you can see right here, the most fitting definition for existential is if you can find at least one true statement or one true variable for that entire statement, then we could say that the entire statement is already true. But if we cannot find uh, any fitting or any true value for that statement, or if we can find that all of the variable x is true for that statement, then that is not a true existential. In that case, we could see that it is already false. Okay, so for us to be able to call that it is true, there should be at least one. Okay, but upon verifying, if everything is true, then that is already false because it would already fall on our universal quantifier. Okay, so the minimum requirements for existential quantifier is there should be at least one true statement or one true variable x, and then the rest, or at least one or two, should be false. Okay, so did you guys get it? For universal, dapat lahat tama. Pag merong isang variable x na mali na rin lahat. Okay, false na yon. Pero dito sa existential, dapat merong isang tama, meron ding isang mali. Okay? Kasi ang requirements natin is at least one, and then meron din dapat iba na false. Kaya nga tinawag na existential kasi some lang, or at least one, or there exists x. Okay? Kasi kapag lahat ng variable x natin is tama, then that is already false for existential. Medyo nagigets nyo na ba?
Yes, sir. Medyo.
Okay. So, sige, yun na lang muna. Mamaya malalaman nyo pa siguro kung ano yung mga ibang detail kapag nagkaroon ng example. Okay, so next we have here examples. So validate the following quantified statements. So number 1, for every real number x, oops, mali to. Gagawin ko lang. Para napalitan to agad. Oops. Bakit na-end ko? X is greater than so in here, x squared is greater than or equal to 0. So, ang condition or ang domain natin is real number. Okay? So, any real number can be substituted to this x. So, ano yung mga real numbers natin? So, kung hindi mo man maalala, okay, so naglagay na ako ng reference dito para hindi na ako magtatanong. Okay? So, lahat ng number na na-imagine nyo is a real number. Okay? So, mapa-irrational man yan or rational, integers, whole numbers, etc. etc. Okay? So, from here, kapag, oops, hindi ko na lang palitan. Okay? Pag pinalitan natin to ng 1, or start muna tayo sa 0. So, 0 squared is 0, right? Wherein 0 is greater than or equal to 0. So, is this true or false? Kapag 0 yung
True,
x
sir.
natin. True. Okay? So, 1 and above, true pa rin ba siya or false?
False, sir.
Ha? Bakit? 1
Sir,
squared.
hindi naman siya... Ay, greater than 0. Yes, sir. True pa rin.
True po.
How about 0 and below? Negative 1 and below. Is it still
No,
true
sir.
or
No,
False, sir.
false po.
so false na siya? So in this case, we could say that this one is a false statement. Okay. And also, number 1, we could also see that this statement is just existential. Okay. So it is true for some x. Okay. But in others, it is not true anymore. Okay. So number 1 is false, and then our answer is existential. Okay. And then how about number 2? Is this true or false?
True, sir.
True. Is it in every possible value of x?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Why? What are the numbers that will not make this one true?
Sir, negative and above. Ay, below 0. Sir.
Hindi may condition na nga tayo eh. If x is greater than 1, so wala na tayong 0 and below. Okay, so take note on this one. X is greater than 1. Okay, so yes, we have a condition. Yeah, x is any real number, but we have another condition wherein x is only greater than 1. So again, what is your answer?
True, sir.
True, sir.
So true na siya sa lahat ng mga possible na x value natin. Tama?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So from here, we could say that this one is true, and at the same time, this one is universally true. Okay? Kasi sa lahat ng possible ng x natin, it is true all the way out. Okay? How about the last one? For every real number x, oops, mali din to. X squared. X squared minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. So, first, alamin nyo muna siguro kung existential siya or universal.
Existential, sir.
So, if it's existential, what is that number of x that would make this one false?
Sir, negative numbers. Mga
Negative
integers, sir.
numbers. Right, so if it's negative 1 times negative 1 is 1, or positive 1. 1 minus 1 is 0, wherein 0 is equal to 0. So,
Ay, okay.
True siya sa lahat, sir.
True sa lahat.
true sa lahat. Okay. So in this case, or in this number 3, this one is universally true. And then this statement is also true all the way up. Okay? So, ganun lang naman kung paano nyo i-differentiate ang universal at saka existential. Right? So, next. Yeah. After pala ng example na to, you're going to have your another assignment, which is this one. So, the same lang naman siya. Yan. So, the same lang naman siya sa past seat breaks nyo. Assignment naman siya lahat. So, meron siyang 1 week, okay, na allotted time. So, in this assignment, oops. Yung pinalitan ko. Ito nga pala yung bago. Yan, sorry. So, in this assignment, ito na yung updated. Okay, hindi na siya assignment. Ang tinawag ko na dyan is seat break. Okay. So, kanina 1 to 7, ngayon 1 to 10. Kinumpleto ko na. So, never mind the other slide that I showed to you. So, ito na yung updated. Okay, hindi pa na final to, kaya ginagamit ko yung PowerPoint presentation kasi kung may correction, then ito yung magiging basis natin para mapalitan kagad. And then, speaking of correction, so I'll just correct this one. Those are X squared. Ano pa ba? There you go. So this will be your assignment, seat break for those topics. So universally quantified and then existentially quantified. So in here, just identify 1 to 10 true or false. And then your domain here is the set of real numbers. Okay? So hanap lang kayo ng mga values na magiging false yung statement nyo. Kapag nakahanap kayo ng isa, so pag merong isang false and then meron ding isang true, then that is already existential and at the same time, false na yung magiging statement. Okay? But in here, you don't need to indicate whether this one is universal or existential. So just answer true or false. Okay? And then one more thing, this one is not yet on your canvas. So I'll just inform you guys once I have already created this seat work on your canvas. Okay? So just choose true or false. Okay, so gagawin ko siya multiple choice. So any clarification so far?
None, sir.
All right,
Sir.
this one is 1 to 10. Next, so yung mga previous topic natin kanina, those are just single quantified. So in here, we can also have multiple quantifiers. Okay. So for example, we can have this kind of quantifier. So for x, that one is universally true. And then for y, that one is existentially true. Okay. So you can read this one as for all x, there exists a y such that proposition. Okay. Or vice versa. So we can have an existential x or a universal y. Okay. So you can read this one as there exists an x such that for all y. Alright? So kung i-analyze nyo naman to, okay, minsan kasi parang gumugulo kapag meron tayong parang pre-existing statement on how to read such formulas. Okay? So in here, ang meaning nito, lahat ng x natin is true. And then sa y natin, there should be at least one value of it that is true. And then the rest could be false. And then same with this one, there is at least one true value for x, then the rest could be false. And then for all the values of y, it should be true. Okay? So ganun lang naman yung pagbasa ng multiple quantifiers. Okay? So next one is negation and quantification. So just be wary when it comes to negating a quantifier. Okay? So ito kasi is lahat ng nasa loob ng statement natin or ng bracket natin is na-negate. Okay? Hindi lang siya nakadepende sa ilan yung bracket, ilan yung parentheses. Okay? So malalaman nyo kung ano yung mangyayari kapag ninegate mo yung isang quantifier. So for now, here's the thing that you need to know. If you negated, or once you negated this existential, this one will become universal. Okay? So do not find this one for now kasi baka mas lalong maguluhan kayo. This is just the way on how to read this quantifier, okay, or multiple quantifier. So once you negated this entire statement, okay, it's just that of course this existential will become universal since yun naman yung kabaliktaran niya talaga. And then at the same time, you're going to negate your proposition. Okay? So depende sa definition ng proposition mo mamaya. So malalaman mo kung paano siya manenegate. Okay? And then vice versa. So if you're going to negate this universal, it will become existential. Okay? And then at the same time, again, you're going to negate your proposition or your statement. Okay? So basically, lahat manenegate. Okay? So later on, I'll give you guys an example on how to do negation. So did you guys get this one so far? So
Sir.
existential will become universal. Universal will become existential. Gets?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sir.
sir.
All right. So let's have an example. So as you can see right here, so logically thinking, okay, baka kasi ganito yung gawin nyo. Logically thinking, if you're going to distribute this negative, it will only reach this first parenthesis. Wherein, ito, second parenthesis natin sa loob at saka yung p, x, and then y will not be touched or will not be changed anymore. Okay? But that is incorrect for quantifiers. So take note kapag ninegate mo yung quantifier, lahat nadadamay. Okay? So hindi ma-apply dito yung parang FOIL method natin. Okay? So dito, inenegate mo to, inenegate mo to, inenegate mo rin to. Alright? So first of all, this one. So once you negated this one will become existential. And then this one also, once you negated this one will become universal. So ito yung first solution natin wherein our first changes is this existential x. And the next one, so inenegate mo rin itong second parenthesis niya, which is this one. So from existential, this one will become universal. Okay? Kung sakaling gusto mong ipakita yung pinaka-last step, ito na pala yun. Pero kung sakali lang naman, dagdag mo dala para mas clear every step. So wala nang nabago dito. And then the last one, just move this one and then that one. Negated p. So there you go. So we negated this one, and then this one. As you can see, we have three changes. This one, and then this one. And then this is now your final answer. Did you guys get it so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, po.
Okay. So do not do this one. Okay, this is using FOIL method. So supposedly, ito lang yung magiging sagot if using the knowledge that you have learned from mathematics. But in here, you're going to negate everything, even though, you know, there is a bracket or a parenthesis. So it's like you're going to neglect all of those. Okay, so ito yung magiging final result natin. And then the same with number 2. Okay, so hindi ko napapakita yung first two steps. So ito biglaan na. Okay, so existential became universal, universal became existential, and then this positive became negative. All right. So are we clear so far for those examples?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
All right, very good. So let's have an exercise. Okay, having now a definition of your proposition. All right, so we have here a statement, and then it is asking us to negate the entire statement. So step by step, let's do it. So universal will become existential, and then the definition of your proposition N, okay, so will become negated. So eto na siya. And then, one more thing, ito nga pala, itong E na to, okay, this one is an element. So you can actually neglect this one. It's just that for all x, proposition n is true such that blah blah blah. Okay, ganun lang kung paano siya basahin. So, actually hindi ko naman siya i-require kung paano siya basahin. So, pwede mong i-neglect to. Wala namang magbabago dyan eh. Okay. So, once you have this one, negated value or negated definition of your proposition. So, first of all, kailangan mo munang kasi kapag ni-negate mo yung conditional, hindi pwede, tama, di ba? Okay, kasi wala namang negated value ang conditional. But we do have equivalence or logically equivalence formulas. Like for example, in laws of logic. So in laws of logic, P conditional Q is equal to not P or Q. So therefore, we can exchange or, swap this one into this one. Okay. So from conditional, we now have or. But at the same time, we should negate the first statement or the hypothesis rather. Okay. So as you can see right here, x is prime, and then once you negated that one, x is not prime. Or x squared plus 1. So, iba na naman. X squared. There you go. So, buti na lang makita ko. So, x squared plus 1 is even. So, ito na yung updated statement natin yan. Okay, using this logical equivalence. And another thing that you can do, okay, is this one. So, since negated P or Q is equal to negated P and not Q, okay, so we could say that, or we could use this one now as your final form. Bakit kailangan ito yung final form mo? Bakit hindi pwedeng dito ka na mag-stop? Kasi hindi natin pwedeng i-distribute ito sa loob ng statement mo. Okay? So, hanap ka ng way para ma-eliminate to without distributing this one on your statement. So, one way to do that one is having this kind of formula, which is fitting for our current statement right now. So, meron siyang negative sa labas, negative din sa labas. Wherein this one is equal to negated P and not Q. Okay? So, saan ko nakuha itong mga to? Hanapin nyo lang to sa laws of logic. Okay? So, that is why, memorizing that one is very important. Pero since ODL tayo, online distance learning, so hindi ko na alam kung na-memorize nyo ba talaga siya or hindi. Okay. So, pwedeng refer na lang kayo kung let's say ipapatakapi nyo or ipiprint nyo rather. So, pwede naman ganun. Okay. So, wala na akong magagawa doon. So, the best thing is you should always have your copy of laws of logic with you. Okay. So, from here, you can now use this one as your final format or final form of your final answer. So, you're going to negate your P. So, from not, okay, will become x is prime again. So, bumalik lang siya sa dati. And then your or will become n, which is not this one. And then x squared plus 1. So, hindi mo kasi pwedeng isabihin dito na is not even. Well, actually pwede. Pero kung may kabaliktaran naman siya, so yun na lang yung gamitin natin. Okay, ano ba yung mga hindi even? So, which is odd. Ano ba yung mga hindi odd? Which is even. So, perfect opposite siya ng definition natin. So, pwede naman siguro, okay, pwede naman na sabihin nyo is not even. Pero baka kasi maglagay sila ng ibang result wherein 1/2 or 0.5 or 0.6. Okay? So in that case, parang hindi na siya complete opposite. Okay? Parang mas lumawak pa yung range natin. So kapag meron siyang complete opposite, huwag kang gagamit ng not as possible for the definition statement of the quantifier. So in here, gagamit tayo ng add, okay? Which is the complete opposite of that word. So, nagets nyo ba so far? kung paano mag-negate ng complete statement. So we have here the universal variable and then the definition. Gets? Or no?
Gets, sir.
Okay. So, sinong nag-a-analyze pa lang? So, I guess wala na. So, ang crucial part lang dito is this one, looking for equivalence formulas in laws of logic. Okay? So, if possible, find a way to eliminate this negated symbol. Okay? So, ito, nagawa niya ng paraan. Nakagamit na tayo ng negated or na-eliminate na natin yung unang obstacle, which is this conditional. Pero meron pa rin yung negated symbol natin dito. Okay. So, from here, hanap kayo ng may negated symbol sa labas, which is this one. And then, transform it into this kind of statement. Right? Okay, so next example. We have here negated existential x such that, or an element of q such that x is greater than 0 and x cubed is equal to 2. Right? So again, negate mo lang tong existential will become universal and then negate the entire statement. Okay? Oops, sobra sa... Ayan. So from here, meron bang not P and Q? Not P and Q. Alright, so in here, he just simply distributed the negative sign. So I think, para magkakaparehasa lang tayo ng sagot, okay, para magkakaparehasa lang tayo ng sagot, if you cannot find a formula that fits this kind of statement, which is not P and Q, okay, kapag walang ganun, wala siyang equivalence dun sa laws of logic natin, then you can just simply distribute this negative symbol. Wherein, if you're going to distribute this one, so from greater, it will become, x is less than or equal to 0, which is the opposite of this one. And then your n will become or. And then x cubed form equal to not equal to. Okay?
Sir,
So,
pag
mas-
na-negate yung less
Yes.
than or greater than sign, magiging palaging may equal sign na palaging may equal na pag negate.
So, para hindi kayo malito, okay, pwedeng greater than, less than or equal or pwedeng less than lang. Okay, accept ko naman yun.
Okay, sir.
Para hindi na lang malimitahan sa isang sagot. Since lahat naman to is handwritten na or via Microsoft Word. Okay? So, hanap lang kayo ng mga ways or ng mga opposite ng mga symbol na nakita nyo. Like for example, this one. So, equal will become not equal. Greater than will become less than or equal. Or greater than will become less than, simply less than. And then your end will become or. Okay? So, hanggang dito lang muna tayo. So, we will just continue the rest on part 2 since we now only have 30 seconds, I guess. So, wait for my link on the part 2. Okay, so goodbye for